Well, welcome, fellow recovering traditionalists, to our monthly hot topic. Now, I know I said that this video is going to be about whether or not we should use alligators, but it's actually so much more than that. There are concepts in math that we can help our students build a very deep understanding about, and we can help them explore relationships from that concept to other mathematical concepts. But then there are also conventions in math. Now, these are things that basically someone has just decided that this is what we're going to do, or this is what we call it, and there isn't anything deep to learn about it. Math concepts are really big ideas that we need to help our students build that deep and connected understanding around. And math conventions are things that we just need to tell kids. And our hot topic this week inside of the Build Math Minds Facebook group is a prime example of how sometimes we can try to help kids to build a deep connected understanding of a convention, when instead we should be focusing on helping kids build a deep and connected understanding of the concept. Okay, now I'm going to bring up this post, the original post here. So this was the original post that got a little heated, not too heated. I mean, not like people were getting mad, but people are very passionate about this use of crocodiles in math. And this came from a mom of a homeschooling 6-year-old boy, and she has no formal training. And she basically said that there's a math exercise that they are using that is using a crocodile's mouth as a visual to explain the greater than and less than concept. I know that the hungry crocodile is eating the greater number, but I feel like something is off with this explanation because he can tell me which number is greater or less, but he wouldn't know which sign to use when prompted. Would you please be willing to help me out, and what would be the best way to make him easily grasp the concept? Maybe the crocodile's mouth is not the best visual to use, and if not, what would be more appropriate? That's what I'm talking about the alligator or crocodile, whichever one you want to call it, right? We've all probably seen it, and many of us have used that, where the alligator eats the bigger one. Because it's an easy, quick way to help kids be able to know which of the symbols to use. And she brings up a really good point here that he can tell which one is greater than and less than, but the problem is he doesn't know which symbol to use. So I know that people get really heated about the use of crocodiles or alligators, whichever one you want to call it. And in the comments, there were lots of examples and other ideas. So a few people even shared the Math Coaches Corner post. Let me bring that one up here really quick, because there was a really cool visual that went along with that one. So if you're not familiar with the Math Coaches Corner, Donna does a great job on this site, and she was showing how if you put the dots, whoops, it was zooming in. I don't want to zoom in on it. There we go. Okay, now I do want to zoom in. There we go. If you put the dots on the points, basically the end points and the vertex of the signs, the one that is opened up has the 2 points and it's next to the larger one, whereas the side that only has 1 point is next to the smaller one, right? This was an example given as another way to help kids understand the greater than and less than symbols. Let me scroll down here. The way I have also learned, this was not the way that I learned as a child, this was something that came up later, was showing the kids how on a number line, the greater than and less than symbols show up. So that as you go to the right and the numbers are getting greater on a number line, you notice the greater than symbol over there. As you're going to the left and the numbers are getting smaller in value, that's the less than symbol, right? Did any of you guys learn that way? I didn't learn it that way. The way I learned it was like this, using my fingers. and that the less than, this one, when I'm looking at it, it may not look that way to you, but when I'm looking at it as a student, I put my fingers up in front of me like this, because it's kind of like this is the symbols when I put them like this, but I'm opening up the symbols, and this one makes an L, and it's in the L shape. This one's a backwards L to me. I know it looks different to you going that way, but for me looking at it, this one makes the L shape, and that one is the less than symbol. That's the way that I learned it growing up. And honestly, we just have to help them. All it is a convention. Who said that this one is the less than and this one's the greater than? There's no deep connection to be made to these symbols. They are just a convention that we need to help kids be able to connect that symbol to the bigger math concept. The concept that we want kids to understand is that this amount is greater than this amount, or this amount is less than this amount. The symbols are the convention, and that's what we end up spending way too much time trying to help kids learn. We spend way too much trying to make all of these connections and build a deep understanding about the symbols, when really the symbol is just a convention. There's no reason why it's this way. So any way that we can help kids learn that this one is the less than symbol and this one's the greater than, and I know that looked backwards to you guys, but it does to me. That's the way that I'm seeing it. Any way we can do that, let's do that, right? It's not a deep understanding. The deep understanding that we need to help the kids build is around the concept of greater than and less than. And what links to that are things like counting and place value and equality. Those are big ideas that we need to help kids understand, not the symbols. The symbols are just a convention. And there are so many other things that we could be spending our time around, this idea of greater than and less than, and counting and comparing quantities, and having kids be able to count out quantities, like physical quantities, and then us as the teachers attaching those symbols to it and exposing kids to those symbols, right? I feel like kids don't get enough of the actual math concept, that we spend a lot of our instruction time trying to help kids with that convention of the symbol, right? So the one that actually came up really that I felt like was the best example that kind of combined both of these, I want to share that. I'm going to bring up another one. So I know we're trying to help kids understand these symbols, and we also want to really focus in, oh, I brought up the wrong thing. We want to, I can't do two things at once. I can't talk and also bring something up. Okay, so as I said, we want to really focus in on this idea of the concept of comparing. The mathematical concept is comparing amounts, whether they are greater than, less than, or equal to. That is the big mathematical concept. The convention is how we are those symbols that we put on a piece of paper. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up because I want to give credit to the person here. So, let's zoom. There we go. So Lori shared this image, and it was funny because she was sharing something that somebody else in the Build Math Minds group, Isabel, had actually shared. Like, this was her image. And Lori shared it and was like, I don't know where I saw this. I don't know who to give credit to. But then in the group, Isabel was like, that's my picture. So I wanted to put it on here. Thank you, Isabel, for sharing this picture. But the reason that I really love this one, they're just using some pins. Let me zoom in on the actual picture here to show you. So this is by Isabel. She was using the pins and showing the kids with the quantities. That's what I love here, is they're seeing the actual objects. They're seeing the 4 things and the 1 thing. And when you put the pins on there, how the 4 things is larger. It's a bigger quantity than the 1 thing. Thus, the mouth is open to it. And I don't care if you call it an alligator mouth or not. I mean, we want them to see that it is open up. I know a lot of people are like, don't call it an alligator. Do not. But you know what? It is a symbol. It's a convention. We need to help them know which one's the greater than, which one's the less than. But as long as we're connecting it to the big idea of comparing quantities, how a kid memorizes that symbol, I could care less. I really could. It's not about the symbol. It's about the big mathematical concept that we're helping them build. And the concept is this idea of comparison, greater than, less than, or equal to. And Isabel, that's why I loved your image so much, is that you are tying the two together. We're seeing the symbol, the greater than symbol, and the equal to symbol, but we're also seeing it in comparison to the actual objects. That's why I really wanted to share this one. That's why I love it. Okay, so the, this was something that I thought of as I was bringing this together. I'm like, why are we so in need of, I don't know if that's the right word, but why are we so concerned about helping kids learn those symbols? And to me, the symbols are just an easy way for us to assess whether or not the kids have that understanding. Because like, if you go around and you ask a child, which one, if we're comparing 19 and 24, tell me about what you know about 19 to 24. You want to word it in a certain way. Is 19 greater than, less than, or equal to 24? I don't care how you ask it. But whatever way you ask it, it's honestly unreasonable to think that you could go around and ask every single child to tell you about comparing numbers. But if you did, you would probably hear that the majority of your kids can compare those numbers. The hard part is, though, they can't put it on paper. They can't use the symbols. But the symbols give us as teachers a quick way to be able to assess that, because we don't have time to go around and ask every single student about their understanding of comparing numbers. So instead, what happens is our textbook and worksheets give kids a sheet of problems, and they have to put the greater than, less than, or equal to symbol into that. And that's our way of knowing whether or not they understand greater than, less than, or equal to. But really, those assessments are not assessing their understanding of comparison. They are assessing whether or not a child can use that symbol. And so I know that's why we have the pressure to teach kids those symbols, but the symbols are only there to give us a way to be able to see that they can compare those numbers. It's not that kids need to be able to use those things. And I'm going to show a screenshot that I took of Dr. Banhars. He commented, if you guys know, like when I saw that Dr. Banhars had commented on here, I was like, oh, I was totally fangirling a little bit. I love Dr. Banhars, and I go to every training that I possibly can watch him at. If you're not familiar with him, we will link up some stuff for him, but he does lots of trainings about the Singapore approach to math, and every time I see him present, I learn a ton. And so when I saw that he commented, I was a little like, whoa. But I loved his comment. I'm not just sharing it because it was Dr. Banhars, but I found his comment was just so informative and enlightening. So I want to bring that up here real quick. Again, I'm trying to talk and do two things at once. So let me bring this up here again. Oh, I gotta zoom out here. Okay. I'm not going to read through this whole thing. I will pause for a moment and not talk so that you could read through it, and then we will chat about a few things, okay? And if you didn't get through it all, feel free to pause once you're watching the replay of this. I know you can't pause it live. I think maybe you can pause it live while we're on here. But basically, he's saying, like, in Singapore, they don't introduce these symbols to kids until grade 7. Grade 7. And we're doing this in, like, first grade. I have seen first grade worksheets with the greater than, less than, and equal to symbol on them. That is not what we should be doing. As he says here, we need to be focusing on letting kids compare sets of objects. That's the big idea, not the stupid symbols. I'm sorry calling it stupid, but it is. The symbols are just stupid. They give us a way to assess our kids' understanding, but we can also ask them. We can also have those conversations if you're unsure about their understanding. It is just a convention. And he even put it in there. It is just, the symbol is a convention. Kids will pick that up through exposure. How do kids learn that the shape of a circle is called a circle? Because we say it all the time. We when we're showing a circle, we use the name circle. And the more that we do that with the symbols, then the kids will get it too. And he even says in here, he says, nothing's wrong with various tricks to help the students identify the right symbol. That's why I said I could care less if you use the alligator symbols. There was a time when that irritated me. But it took me understanding what's the big idea. And are the symbols the big thing that I need kids to understand? Heck no. The symbols are just a symbol. I need kids to understand how to compare quantities. How they write that on a piece of paper is a convention that somebody made up. And I don't care what it takes to help the kids be able to learn that convention. They will get there. But the big idea of being able to compare quantities is the piece that we need to help kids be able to do. I just love that comment though, because he basically summarizes everything that we just talked about in this video. So you can go back and reread that if you need to. But as I said before, there are some things in math that we can really help kids discover and build their understanding around. And there are some things in math that kids will honestly never discover on their own. But they can learn about those things through us modeling it and through the exposure, us using the terminology, right? No kid is going to just come up one day and be like, hey, Mom, I think this is the symbol for greater than. That is not something that a kid is going to discover. But my child could come up and say, hey, Mom, did you know that if I have 4 groups of 3, that is 12? Because they'll discover it by counting and modeling it, and they'll discover that on their own. But that symbol of a greater than or less than is not something they will discover. We just have to teach it to them, and the more exposure and modeling they get, the easier it will be to recall that information. And tricks do help. I am fine with tricks for things that are conventions. Mnemonic devices help me remember things that I can't just easily recall from making connections to other things. And that's kind of what the tricks are for the greater than and less than symbols. So the actual symbols are the convention, but the idea of greater than and less than and equal to is a big math concept that we need to be spending more time on helping kids develop that deep and connected understanding around. The symbols are showing that relationship between the two quantities. And we need to spend more time, though, developing that idea of comparison of quantities. The equal sign, the greater than, and less than signs do show that relationship from one side to the other, but the symbol is just a convention. Spend more time playing with numbers, letting kids count, looking at and comparing quantities, and you layering in the language and the symbols and connect it all together for the kids. All right, I hope this video has helped you build your math mind so you can go build the math minds of your students. Okay, now that I got that out of the way, I can take a look at comments and see if there were any questions that came up around this topic. Okay, so Allison says, I agree about the discovery of the symbols, but a lot of times the greater than and less than symbols are not called by their names in the classroom, first grade and up. This becomes very problematic when algebraic expressions are being compared with the symbols in higher grades. And most students have no clue which expression is greater than, less than, because they don't get called what those symbols actually are. So Allison, great point. I did say I don't care if you're using an alligator to help kids understand, but as the teacher, we need to be modeling how we say it. So once we get the symbols in there and we get the right symbol in there, we need to always be saying exactly what the expression says. So if it's 24 is greater than 19, we can't just stop at putting the correct symbol in there. We also need to layer in the terminology and say the actual expression, just like we would if the equal sign was in there, that 5 equals 4 plus 1. Kids need to hear the expression that gets created when we put the greater than and less than symbols in there, right? And that's one of the reasons why I think I always liked this version, was because this is helping me know it's the less than. The L is tied to the L in less than, and then I know the other one is the greater than. It is important that we do attach the correct terminology and we don't just leave it. I think that's been the problem with the alligator. You're right, Allison, is that we're saying, the alligator eats the bigger one, but we're not attaching the correct terminology to those symbols once kids get the symbols in there. So that's an important point to bring up. So Beth's comment, she says, I have the kids circle the greater number so I can tell if the concept or the symbol is what they're struggling with. So I love this idea about what Beth's saying is they might put the incorrect symbol in there, but if you also have them circle the greater than, then you can, which number is greater than, then you can tell, was it the symbol that they were unsure about, or did they, or are they actually, not understanding which concept is bigger or greater than. Are there other topics in math where this would apply as far as not worrying so much about conventions? This makes so much sense to me as I think about my first graders. So to me, I don't know that would be an interesting thing to put side by side, things that are math concepts, things that are conventions. If you think about a concept, like when you go to teach it, the way I try to think about it is is there a reason for this? Is there a reason why 4 plus 1 equals 5? Is there a why behind it? Is there connections I can make to this thing to other mathematical concepts? If there is, it's a math concept that is a big idea that I want to build those deep understandings, the why behind, the connections to. If I look at something and then I say, okay, why is this? So for example, when we're doing geometry things and there's a lesson on naming shapes. Why is a circle called a circle? I'll be honest, I don't know. Is there a reason why it's called a circle? I don't know. To me, there's no why behind it. Somebody just decided this is what it's called. Now, when I look at triangle, is there a reason why it's called triangle? Yes, because it has 3 triangles, 3 angles. Is there a reason why something's called a quadrilateral? Yes, those are things that I could go deeper into. If there's no why behind it, there's nothing deeper to go. It's just that. It is because somebody decided that. If I'm thinking about money, right? Money, this is a whole other subject, but money is not technically a math concept. It's a social concept because there's different money systems and different social systems. But here in the United States, why do we call this thing the dime? I don't know. It just is. It's just something I have to learn, that this thing that looks like this is called a dime. It's worth 10, but I can help build connections between that and 10 pennies and exchanging 10 pennies for a dime. There's things that I could build connections to, but some things are just it is. It's just something that we have to learn, and the more repetitions and the more times I hear it, the more it's going to connect to me. There is no reason to me why a dime is called a dime, right? It just is. So I've just got to learn that, and I've got to help my kids learn that. It's just a convention. So that's my kind of basis of what I look at, is there a deeper purpose why? And if I don't know, sometimes I just don't know the deeper purpose. And so I'll ask other people, I'll Google it, things like that. I mean, we've got a lot of resources at our fingertips now because of Google. And if there's no why behind it, to me, then it is just a convention that I need to help my kids learn and know. And that happens usually from repetition, repetition, repetition. It really doesn't matter how we help kids learn those symbols. It's just a convention. We need them to, whatever way you do help them, they need to know the correct terms. They can't just know that this, you put this one in, that the mouth opens up to the bigger number. They do need to know what those symbols are called, just like they know what the equal sign is called. Right? It is a symbol that expresses the relationship between two sides of the expression. And as they move forward, they will need that as they're going up into what they're doing in mathematics. Okay, we'll talk to you later.